Hello everyone and welcome to the History Quiz February 2024 with me, Joshua Daniels. This is a series of monthly quizzes I'll be doing specifically focused around history throughout the year of 2024 with one released every month. There are 30 questions, 5 categories, and there'll be 1 point for each correct answer. So without further ado, let's move on to the rules for those of you who didn't play the January one. The rules are really simple. There is no conferring. I'll just move my face out of the way. There is no conferring, so you can play as teams or on your own, but there is no discussion or cheating between teams or players. You must play it as a singular unit. There is no using search engines or internet to find out the answers. That also includes no pausing in order to think about it. You have to use the allocated time. Now there is one answer per question, so there won't be any multiple answers per question, and it will just be 1 point per correct answer, 1 point per correct answer to the one question. And as I said, there are 5 categories, 30 questions, and there will be 15 seconds to answer each one. You do not need to answer all the questions, but will not get a point for questions left unanswered. So you won't be penalised if you leave a question blank, but you won't get the point. So, if that sounds all simple, without further ado, let's quickly move into the first category, which is Famous Faces. So again, for those of you who didn't play January's, Famous Faces is I'll show you pictures of famous historical figures and you have 15 seconds to write down the name of that historical figure. So, let's move on to the first famous face. Face number 1. And face number 2. And face number 3. And face number 4. And face number 5. And face number 6. And face number 7. And face number 8. And penultimate, face number 9. And the final face of this category for this month, face number 10. And that marks the final face for this month's Famous Faces category. That was the end of the first category, Famous Faces. Now we're moving on to the second category, which is events and dates. So this one is a little bit different to the rest of the categories. I will show 5 events on the left hand side of the screen, and I will show 5 events and 5 dates on the right hand side of the screen. All you have to do is match the correct date to the event. Now you will get a minute to work through each of the 5 events, and you have to just either write it down, number the letter to the number, you have to write down the event to the date, or you can just simply do 1 to 5 and then just put down whichever date you want. But as long as you're matching the correct event to the correct date is how you get the point. So the next category, events and dates, your minute starts now. Ten seconds. And that marks the end of your minute and the end of category 2, events and dates. Moving on to the third category now, back to more standard routine. The third category is true or false, really straightforward. I'm going to put up 5 historical statements. You have 15 seconds to answer whether or not you think it's true or false. You get a point, of course, for each correct answer, and it's a 50-50 chance, so we've got a pretty good chance of at least getting one or 2 points here. So without further ado, let's move on to the third category, and our first question is true or false? The Licensing Act of 1872 in the UK says you can face a fine for being drunk in a pub. True or false? Question 2. True or false? Chess was once an Olympic event from 1904 to 1916. True or false? Question number 3. True or false? Pluto, the planet, got its name from Pluto, the Disney cartoon dog, after an 11-year-old contacted NASA with the suggestion. True or false? Question number 4. True or false? Adolf Hitler dodged conscription in the German army in the First World War by giving himself gout. True or false? And the final question, number 5, true or false? Number 5. At one point, the British Empire controlled nearly a quarter of the world's land area. True or false? And moving on to the final question, and moving on to the penultimate category, should I say. The next category will be our fourth one, which came first? So I will put up 2 historical events, and you will get 1 point for putting the correct answer, and the way to get that point would be by putting the one that came first. Really straightforward. So without further ado, let's move on to the fourth category, which came first. And our first question is, Number 1. Which came first? The invention of the printing press or the invention of the steam engine? Question number 2. Which came first? The painting of Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci or painting of Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh? Or Go or Gogh, whichever country you're from. Question number 3. Which came first? Muhammad Ali becoming world champion boxer or Mike Tyson becoming world champion boxer? Moving on to the penultimate question. Number 4. Which came first? The death of Elvis Presley or the death of JFK? And the final question of this penultimate category. Number 5. Which came first? The name of the colour orange or the name of the fruit? So essentially, which came first? The colour orange or the name of the fruit orange? You could also phrase it as, did the fruit get its name from the colour or did the colour get its name from the fruit? And that marks the end of our penultimate category, which came first. Moving on to our final category. Our final category is general history knowledge. Really straightforward, really simple. This will be 5 general history questions aimed at trying to be accessible for all, covering different periods, covering different geographical areas as well. All you have to do is put down the right answer to the question for 1 point. And again, 5 questions, so 5 possible points. So without further ado, let's go to the first question of our final category. General history knowledge. Number 1. Where was Napoleon exiled to? Question number 2. Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay were the first people to do what? Question number 3. Which Chinese dynasty ruled from 1368 to 1644? Penultimate question of our final category. Question number 4. The North American X-15 holds a record for being the fastest ever what? And the final question of the quiz this month. Question number 5. Who was the last crowned Anglo-Saxon King of England? And that marks the end of the general history knowledge, which is our final category, and that marks the end of February's 2024's history quiz. So just a second before we move on to the answers, really just get your, take a breather. Just make sure you're ready to go marking. We're going all the way back to the famous faces category. I try and make these history quizzes as accessible as possible to people who either know loads of history or just a little bit, and from different areas across the world, those who have different interests in different periods. So I hope you either have learned something from this quiz, or you impress yourself with how much you actually knew. And so, if we're all ready, we're moving on to the answers. So, famous faces. The answers are as follows. Number 1 was Emperor Hirohito or Showa. I would accept both. Number 2 was Marie Curie. Number 3 was Nelson Mandela. Number 4 was Anne Boleyn. Number 5 was Benjamin Franklin. Number 6 was Pol Pot. Number 7 was James Cleveland Jesse Owens. I will accept just Jesse Owens as well. Number 8 was Aristotle. Number 9 was Vladimir Lenin. I will also accept just Lenin. And number 10 was J.R.R. Tolkien. I will also accept just Tolkien. Moving on to events and dates. So this is where the answering, like I say, is a bit different. How I'll do it is I will say which event goes to which date and also which number to which letter. So, number 1, end of the Ottoman Empire. That went to D, which was 1922. So 1, which is D, 1922. Number 2, Queen Victoria's crown. That went over to B, 1838. So number 2 is B, 1838. Number 3, end of the First Crusade. That went to E, 1099. So 3 is E, 1099. Number 4, Romulus Augustus, last Western Roman Emperor, abdicates. So 4 goes to C, 476. And number 5, the Great Fire of London, goes to A, 1666. So 5 is A, 1666. As you can see, I've also drawn lines to them, just in case you want to do it visually, rather than through me telling you. So, if we've all marked those up, we're now moving on to the next category, which is true or false. So, number 1, true or false? Number 1, the Licensing Act of 1872 in the UK says you can face a fine for being drunk in a pub. That is true, so number 1 is true. Number 2, chess was once an Olympic event from 1904 to 1916. That is false, it's never been an Olympic event. Number 3, Pluto, the planet, got its name from Pluto, the Disney cartoon dog, after an 11-year-old suggested it to NASA. Now this is false, although Pluto was found in 1930, a year before Pluto the dog got his name, and Pluto was still actually suggested by an 11-year-old girl named Benicia Burney, but it wasn't named after the dog. Number 4, Adolf Hitler dodged conscription in the German army in the First World War by giving himself gout. That is false. He served in the war, apparently with great valor and apparently with great willingness to fight, but he was ultimately hospitalised by a gas attack, and that is how he didn't see the end of the war and was apparently distraught when he heard that Germany had lost. And number 5, at one point the British Empire controlled nearly a quarter of the world's land area. That is true, and in 1913 it controlled nearly a quarter of the world's population as well. Moving on to which came first, and which came first, the invention of the printing press or the invention of the steam engine? The answer is for number 1 is printing press. Number 2, the painting of the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci or painting of Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. It was Mona Lisa. Number 3, Muhammad Ali becoming world champion boxer or Mike Tyson becoming world champion boxer. It is Muhammad Ali. Number 4, the death of Elvis Presley or the death of JFK? The answer is the death of JFK. And number 5, which came first, the name of the colour orange or the fruit orange? So did the fruit orange get its colour from the name from the fruit, or did the colour get its name, or should I say, did the colour get its name from the fruit? And the answer is, actually the fruit was the first thing to be called orange. Before in the 1300s, it was originally known as yellow red, and it wasn't until the importing of oranges from Sanskrit, the Sanskrit language as well, that did it get its name, and it was called Naranja, which Naranjat, and that is how it developed into orange. And the final category, general history knowledge. Where was Napoleon exiled to? It was St. Helena. Number 2, Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay were the first people to do what? Climb to the peak of Mount Everest. I will also accept climb Mount Everest. Number 3, which Chinese dynasty ruled from 1368 to 1644? That's the Ming Dynasty. Number 4, the North American X-15 holds the record for being the fastest ever what? That is airplane or airplane. And number 5, who was the last crowned Anglo-Saxon King of England? And that was Harold Godwinson. So I'd like to say a big thank you all for playing. I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know your scores in the comments. And I look forward to seeing you play with me again in March.